Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Hier lernst du alles rund um das Thema Investor Relations, Fundraising und Kapitalmarkt. Mein Name ist Julia Stötzl und ich bin Gründerin und CEO von Investor Relations Beratung Unicorn. Unicorn ist davon eine Mission, Investor Relations für die nächste Generation einzuführen. Das bedeutet ganz konkret die Integration von digitalen Medien wie zum Beispiel LinkedIn, Podcast, Newsletter in die klassische Kapitalmarktarbeit. Mehr Informationen zu Unicorn, aber auch zum Podcast findest du unter unicornconsulting.com. Und jetzt wünsche ich euch viel Spaß beim Zuhören.
Address critical issues proactively and transparently.
By communicating ahead of time and explaining the exact position the company is in.
How important very strong governance is. And that is something which we try to provide and advise on.
Because a lot of small caps do not have ESG ratings, even if they have a 100% pure green story.
The means and the digital tools that we have available at our fingertips and using them on a daily basis are not really being utilized yet in kind of the day-to-day IR pieces. Hello, my name is Julia and I'm founder and CEO of investor relations consultancy Unicorn. Unicorn is on a mission to provide next-generation investor relations by utilizing digital media into the IR work.
Hi, my name is Caroline. I'm leading IR and ESG at a German neobank. In this episode, we're going to share with you the panel that should have taken place in our last Street Tweets event, but due to some people being ill or some people couldn't make it, we're actually going to do it live on the podcast. And the topic of the panel discussion will be maximizing shareholder engagement, diverse perspectives from industry leaders, which are going to be our sponsors from the last event. And in this panel, we're going to be deep diving in the topic with exactly this esteemed group of experts, which are going to offer us the valuable insights into the intricate world of shareholder engagement. Let's get started.
So Caroline, this week has been crazy, no? I mean, we just finished this event and there was Eigenkapitalforum. I'm so exhausted from this week, but it also has been really good. So, just my recap from the Street Read third edition community event is that we're definitely get the hang of organizing these events now better, right? I think we're getting more professional. We had for the first time like a videographer there, which I found added a really nice, something really special. We had a great keynote with Patrick Kofler on shareholder engagement. In general, I think the crowd was also more geared towards the listed companies, maybe this time, as opposed to more the tech private companies, I would say. But it was very nice. It was just like that I personally was extremely tired, and there was, for me, definitely no after party on the horizon. What about you? What was your recap of the event?
I would agree with everything you said. It was actually nice. It was really special if you think about it, that it was basically exactly 1 year since we had the first event and therefore the launch of the podcast, and it was in the same location, and it made me think a lot about like everything that happened, I guess, in the last year, and like how far the podcast actually came. We even tried to crack like a joke about how we started the recording in my flat in Berlin.
Do you think actually people understood? Because I don't know. I don't think anyone was laughing. But yeah, maybe just for the audience here as well, right? Our first episodes, first of all, the first trailer we recorded 200 times, right? And then the first episode we recorded in your shoe closet because it was the only room in your big flat that was not echoing too much, right?
I think actually what people picked up on was the fact that I actually had a shoe room. I think that was the main question I got after we made that speech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then otherwise also, you're right. I think our podcast came a long way in this 1 year, and it's actually crazy to think like if you do something consistently enough over a certain amount of time, anything is really possible. And the fact that we are also, being partnering with CIRA and the Eigenkapitalforum as podcast partners alongside. So I was at Eigenkapitalforum. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it, but
next time
we had a stall next to like these really. Yeah, exactly. Like we had a stall next to these like really big podcasts, like Alles auf Aktien, Der Aktionär, all of them had like podcast stalls there as well. So that was pretty cool, and it actually showed me, wow, like, we're maybe still like somewhat like small, but small.
We were there.
Yeah, we were there, and I think we're making our way. So I think that's super exciting.
No, honestly, like I'm so happy about what we created. Like a lot of people asking like how did it start? Why did you do this? It started like somehow randomly, and like it was the best decision we did at the time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was a lot of work at the beginning. I think there was a point at the beginning when I was like, I'm not sure if I have time for this. This is like so time intensive because when you do something for the first time, right? And this is also really how it feels like about building a business, right? Like you do something for the first time, it takes ages. It's usually bad quality. It's like crap. But then if you do it over and over and over again, you get better, and then you can improve the quality. And then we started doing content. So yeah, it was also a big learning for me, and I really think this podcast was one of the best things that I at least could do for 2023. And I think that's also, let's maybe talk a little bit about our outlook for 24. Caroline, do you have any, I don't know, professional goals or anything for the podcast that we already want to teaser on? Like maybe, if you can tell me like a couple of things that are on your horizon for 2024. I actually don't know the answer yet, so for everyone's reference.
That's true. We haven't chatted about that one yet. So I'd say on the work side, I mean, I think it's a target. Let's see if we actually make it. I'd really like to spend a bit more time on, like, it was something we used to do when we were working together, and really setting a bit of a strategy and like a timeline for the next year, and like what are like our baseline projects, but then what can we do on top to like create value. So really kind of like plan out the next year and see where we can really like maximize the like value from the team, and also work a bit more on like the team like spirit, like all these things that when you're like in your day-to-day work you don't have time to do. So I'd love to try to do this a bit more, or at least start it for once. So I'd say like work-wise that would be like a target that, or an outlook I'd like to give for myself. And then with the podcast, I mean, like, there's so much, like, I don't know where to start, from the fact that we're going to be recording in our studio, that we're going to have all this, like, super professional setup, and then the amazing speakers that we have on board, and also the people that we've met in the last couple of weeks that could potentially become, like, speakers on the podcast as well. Like, it's endless. I don't know if we can already teaser, like, one or two speakers that we already have on board. Is it too soon?
I think those that are confirmed, we can already maybe share. No, maybe not actually. Let's not, because I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, it's quite some big names in the private space, but also in the listed space. Actually international guests as well, German guests. We also do the occasional German episode, that then I will just do the interview with them in German. If we ever have an Italian guest, Caroline would also do it in Italian, but I think this will not be very beneficial for everyone that only speaks English or German. But yeah, I think the studio for me is also a big one, and it's crazy. I really manifested this office and everything like for like a good part of a year, I would say, and I think this could really be a game changer for our events. We can do much more frequently events because we're more flexible. It's cheaper for us now to do these events, or like more, in general, more flexible. Like, and then also the studio, having a studio will really improve the quality again. We can do more content there as well. It will look more consistent, because now, I mean, it doesn't bother me per se. We all start out like as we go and we learn as we go, but just make it look more like seamless and professional. I think that will really upgrade it. Yeah, and then continuing to partner with conferences, I think, will be something as well. We just talked about as well a couple of events that we do want to do. We want to actually branch out to a couple of other cities as well. So do like Street Reads Goes, We're not going to tell you yet where we're going to go, but things like that. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And keeping in mind that this is our kind of side hustle or side project,
Yeah.
we've come a long way, right? I mean, we're not professional podcasters by any means.
I mean, people often ask me like, "Oh, so you work with Julia? Is this your full-time job?" I'm like, no, I have a full-time job in another company. Oops.
Yeah, maybe I should coach you again. If your manager hears that now. So we're doing this both as a side hustle, but yeah, I think we also really professionalized, right? Because we have now basically also, through Unicorn, we have like a team in the background that it's almost working like an old engine, which is quite nice. So we just record, someone puts it together, someone is uploading it. There's like a whole process now behind it, and that makes it pretty easy to also push out a lot of episodes now faster and we don't have to be involved. I mean, I remember at the beginning we had to kind of like, we wrote the title.
We were doing the cutting, remember?
Doing the cutting, like it was crazy. We were putting.
We had no clue.
Mad. And also, I mean, the cover photo we did ourselves. This was a selfie, no? Remember? This wasn't a professional photograph.
The photo actually looks good, I have to say.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, maybe now we have another photo as well from the event, but
I'm so excited to see the photos. I can't wait for them to come out.
yes.
But yeah, I think this wraps it up. We have quite a lot to look forward to, I would say.
Yes, I also I have not really prepared any bullets, but I also wanna think about what my goals are for 24. I mean, I definitely wanna grow with Unicorn. I had like just a strategy kickoff, or not kickoff, like a strategy meeting with my leadership team. The team is really growing, so that's something that I did for the first time in Berlin. In the Zukunftsquartier in Friedrichstraße in Berlin is actually owned by Deutsche Bank and hosted. It's like a co-working space that's rather affordable. It's really cute. It's like it's a co-working space and you can rent a spot for 10 euros a day, which is really cheap.
It's really
cheap. And it's good quality. If you have a flip chart, you have like tables, you have there's even a cafe, you know, you can order food and drinks. And
I know about this.
How I heard about it?
No, but I mean, I guess that now that work is done, we're gonna have to find one.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, in the strategy workshop, we discussed everything from vision to what are our goals, or what are our KPIs, what is my revenue goal. I definitely want to grow a lot. I want to double down on digital. You know, I want to smoothen operations, like really streamline and process everything kind of in a standardized way. That what can be standardized, obviously. What else have we discussed? We discussed culture, we discussed HR things. So really professionalizing the company as it is, because remember, like at the beginning of 23, I was still like the one-man show freelancer, and I was just like, you know, doing this like odd project here and there. But now it's really like much more like a company, you know, like we're doing reach outs and we have like a sales process and stuff like that. And it's fun. I really actually have to say I enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to 24. And again, like this end of the year is always for me a good reminder of how much is possible in just 1 year.
That's really
crazy. So yes, also a couple of private projects on my side. Obviously, with the wedding is a lot of work, but yeah, it will all fall into place, I think.
Exciting in that as well.
Well, then I would say we'll hit it off with the panel. This is actually our last episode, right? So just everyone who doesn't know yet, we will make a pause for a couple of weeks, just over the Christmas period. I think not everyone wants to listen to business content anyways. And we also need a break, to be honest. And so we're gonna make a pause until beginning of January, I think.
Yeah. Catch you soon. Hello everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you to this live panel discussion on maximizing shareholder engagement, looking at the diverse perspective from industry leaders. And today with us, we have an esteemed group of experts, each of which will be offering valuable insights into the intricacies of shareholder engagement. So to kick off our panel, we will have Angelica, who brings over 2 decades of experience in fostering connections between listed companies and their shareholders, particularly on pressing ESG topics. And having recently joined Alliance Advisors after a successful career at S&P Global Market Intelligence, Angelica will also be able to share valuable insights on and offer practical tips to navigate future challenges in the field of shareholder management. And following Angelica, we're going to have Markus, who's the head of capital markets at Bader Bank. He's responsible for research, corporate advisory, corporate access, and ECM. And he's worked in the capital market industry for more than 18 years. He also has extensive contact with companies and investors. And the topic of ESG also plays an important role for him as well. Markus is one of the top stock pickers and has studied chemistry before switching to economics. Next up, we have Goetz, who's the founder of Captrace and a recognized expert in register shares, investor analysis, and share register systems. Captrace, under Goetz leadership, provides an innovative software and services for effective management of equities and investors. And with us today, we're also going to have Joerg, who's the head of Central Corporate Venture Capital for Deutsche Bank. Thank you again for joining us today and bringing your insights on this very interesting field. And finally, we have Julia Stetzel, who's founder and CEO of Unicorn, a consultancy on a mission to revolutionize investor relations through the integration of digital media. Julia's forward-thinking approach aligns with the evolving landscape of communication and engagement strategies in the financial industries. Together, all these distinguished panelists will bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion. So let's actually deep dive into the conversation and learn about how to maximize shareholder engagement. Thank you all again for being here. So starting with the first question, the topic is exactly transparency and trust in the shareholder engagement. And these are essential elements for success. So how does your company, starting with Goetz, advise stakeholders on transparency in its communication, especially during challenging times like market downturns? And could you share with us some instances where transparent communication not only has preserved, enhanced the shareholder trust, but led to sustained engagement?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. Yeah, communication is always important, but especially in difficult times. Now we have right away. Everyone wants to know what is going on in difficult times, so open and target communication with shareholders is very important. Address critical issues proactively and transparently. Don't hide and stay in constant communications. That's what we telling our clients. Especially the Brenntag case shows, for example, how important it is to be active in critical situations. Actively approaching a large number of investors and communication openly saved Brenntag from worse. The IR team and the executive board worked hand in hand together and did really good job. And because of their direct and active communication.
That's actually a great example. Thank you for sharing that with us. Also, let's hear from Angelica. What is your thoughts on this? Very, very interesting to compare the experiences.
Sure, thanks, Caroline. I think you have to look at shareholder engagement and the communication that a company leads with its investors, not just on the financial factors, but also in all of the non-financial factors. So governance, in particular, it has to be seen as a friendship that you have with somebody, a relationship that you build for the good and the bad times. So it's definitely the first piece of advice is don't just start when things are maybe not looking so great. Maybe you have an agenda item on the agenda for the shareholder meeting that might cause some issues with some investors, or maybe your company isn't in the best of places at this moment in time, and you have some sort of crisis management to be done. To reach out to investors only then is probably not the best time. But it should be something that is something very forward-looking. So shareholder engagement, you should be seen as a relationship that you build in the good times in order to nourish you through the bad times, to make sure that the investor understands what you require maybe in that time. If you are maybe asking for some support from the investor on an agenda item that maybe the investor wouldn't normally agree to, for example, a capital increase, right? So let's say that the company is asking for capital increase in bad times because it needs the capital to sustain itself over a certain amount of time. And the shareholders often have very strict guidelines or very restrictive guidelines, especially on preemptive right exclusions or on the overall amount of capital that a company can ask for. But by communicating ahead of time and explaining the exact position the company is in, looking back at the history of usage of capital, for example, and really talking about why it is so important right now that this particular shareholder supports and maybe bypasses their own guidelines to help the company flourish in the future, we have seen that this actually can be done if it is done effectively, and if it is not done with very little time or without much explanation or without much transparency, because then of course you don't have any reason to support. And I think that's really the gist of all of this is try and build a relationship with your investors, inform them of those things that are very important. Where are you in the journey? You don't have to be at the end of the journey, but you have to communicate where you are, what are your goals, where are you going next year, and then also talking about or try and understand what the investors' initiatives are. What are their focus points for this year? Is it maybe something different than last year? At this moment in time, a lot of guidelines are changing. A lot of the shareholder voting guidelines are changing. So inform yourself and also find out what are the things that drive this investor in the voting season. And then you can often come together and have a very fruitful relationship in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really touched upon so many important topics. And at the end of the day, it's really that. It's like having this healthy communication from the start and being able to build this relationship out of trust, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's one investor that said it very perfectly. They said, and I think it was a company that was trying to engage with them. It's one of the largest investors in the world, and they have a lot of people very very much focused on just speaking to their investee companies on the non-financial topics. And this company was approaching them very last minute, like I just described, asking for help. And the investor, even though they did help in the end, they actually said, this is something you should have come to us 6 months ago. Then we had time. At this moment in time, we're in the voting season, we have loads to do. We don't have so much time to now really see if this is something feasible or not for us. So yeah, that's really the best piece of advice, is just to start when times are good. Start when you have time. Start when it's not so urgent yet. And then you have the relationship to fall back on later on if you ever need it. Hopefully not.
Super great advice. Well, then curious to hear what Goetz from Captrace also has to say. He definitely has quite a bit of experience as well in shareholder engagement and transparency, but more data-driven even in that sense. Taking the point of view of Markus from Baader Bank and Joerg from Deutsche Bank, how do you generally assist the stakeholders in integrating ESG principles into their shareholder engagement strategies? Could you provide some concise examples of successful ESG-driven shareholder engagement? Maybe we can start with Joerg. What's your take on it?
Great, thank you, Caroline, and great being on the show again. So let me maybe break it down into the three categories. So starting with governance, a topic which is very close to my heart and the heart of Deutsche Bank, and I think we all have seen it in the OpenAI example how important very strong governance is, and that is something which we try to provide and advise on. So when we add usually a board observer as an investor into the board of a startup, we are looking in terms of what is lacking in the board, not only from a knowledge perspective, but maybe as well from a governance know-how perspective. Second element is diversity. Diversity we take very seriously. So happy to announce and mention that we have over 30% of our nominations into the board are female. Just one element, obviously, of diversity, but we believe that a diverse board will be better from a risk management perspective and will come to better outcomes. From an environmental aspect, you might have seen our investment into Plan A. Plan A is a company from Berlin, actually, from here, providing carbon measurement, carbon reporting, and decarbonization solution. And we have integrated this one as well into our corporate bank offering. So in terms of clients can get their support for their carbon measurement, but as well carbon reduction. And finally, as well, in our own reporting, we are as well reporting on ESG targets to our board on a regular basis.
Extremely interesting. And yeah, of course, we know Plan A, and it's a very well-known startup here in Berlin. But great that all of this is happening. I mean, great example also for many companies out there. What about you, Markus? What do you think from the Baader Bank side?
Yeah, ESG for us is a very important risk assessing tool in our research. So we have for all our 600 companies under coverage a ESG rating and also credit rating. But the ESG rating together with the equity rating is interlinked. So we advise companies before they come to the market. When they have an IPO, we advise them what we think investors are looking at and what is critical. We also show them that we have many examples where companies which had not that good ESG scores at the end had, in particular from the governance side, had an issue then, and as such, then also a valuation effect. And therefore, ESG is important not only in the current discussion, it's also important from the valuation side as well, and as such also from the share price performance. And as such, we consult the investors and companies. We show them our rating. We show them also that we in a large ESG rating agencies, there is a certain element which helps larger companies, large ESG related IR teams to get better ratings, and we have tried to basically improve this rating also for small caps, because a lot of small caps do not have ESG ratings, even if they have 100% pure green story. And we also in particular advise the smaller companies how they can improve the view from the outside, and also how they can work on their ESG ratings.
I mean, I would say that in both cases, both Bader and Deutsche Bank are really playing a role in driving this transition from what you said, like both by giving access or like educating smaller caps, or giving access to your corporate clients to solutions such as carbon accounting. It's very interesting to see that this is the drive that we're seeing in the market, and that both of you are also part of. I'd say that in a way, one commonality in both examples is that there is a lot of both within ESG, but then in shareholder management as a whole, there's a lot of data that plays. So as you said, like in the ratings, it must be backed by some kind of numerical or factual supporting points. So this is also the data-driven side of engagement strategies. I suppose Captrace and Bader Bank, you're two experts here, Goetz and Markus. How do you find that this helps you in your communication analytics and empowering companies to enhance their dialogue with shareholders? Could you elaborate a bit on how you can transform raw shareholder data into actionable insights, and how these insights have directly contributed to strategies that maximize the shareholder engagement and trust? Maybe, Gus, do you want to go ahead and tell us a bit more about it?
Okay. We do shareholder analytics day by day, and especially in downturn markets, it is important to know who are the shareholders, and so we help the issuers doing it very fast, and do it over a certain period of time. This shows very often the investment behavior of the investors. So our clients see how the investors are thinking about certain issues, certain behavior of the issuers, and and if you know who are the shareholders, you can directly communicate, and you know who to talk to. Though I think digital knowledge about the investors is a very, very important thing in the communication.
It's knowledge, also data knowledge is definitely a driving force in being able to take the good decision, I would imagine. Markus, would you agree with this statement as well from your point of view?
No, absolutely. I can fully agree on this. We of course also do this investor targeting for investors and help them to maximize their communication. And of course, you have the classical targeting tools. what we also use, we have an interactive research platform where we see who is reading what kind of research. And also on top of that, we also add on our multiple investor access events that we see who is in a presentation, who is in one-on-ones and all together, and also in one-on-ones of peers, and then try to map this and give then the companies an overview to who they regularly speak, and for sure they will know it, but also to the white spots they have. Maybe they are not aware of that an investor for a certain region is interested, and as such we also try to maximize and improve the momentum of the communication with corporates and the investors.
I think we were all quite impressed. Like when it comes to investor targeting, I feel like we've come a long way from at least when I first even just a few years back when I started working in investor relations, when we would go more by word of mouth or past experiences with investors, and now we have really data-driven insights on which investors are most matching based on their previous investments, based on the characteristics of their current investments. It's really come quite a big step, and I feel like with the new technologies and AI to an extent, we're going to be able to even further improve in this science, if you want to call it this way. I mean, another way of actually reaching these investors, other than through our banks or the direct communication, it's through digital strategies. And with us today, we have Julia, who's quite the expert here, and she can definitely share with us a great amount of information about how digital strategies and the digital content can help maximizing shareholder engagement. In that sense, maybe would you like to start, Julia, sharing some specific examples of how you're helping maybe your own clients, but how you've also experienced it yourself in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's also super interesting how banks or other service providers are using data, and I think data is really the key. And I think when I started out in investor relations, I was somewhat maybe even shocked, I would say, that the means and the digital tools that we have available at our fingertips and using them on a daily basis are not really being utilized yet in kind of the day-to-day IR pieces. So meaning, the usage of social media or digital media such as podcasts and video and so on. Because all of these tools that we have, that we can access, and that everyone's almost like used to in their daily lives, also contain a lot of data, and it allows us to really digitally target specific audiences, whether that's investors or analysts or bankers or whoever you do want to target. And so this is something that I've implemented into my IR toolkit that I offer to my clients, alongside obviously going to conferences, organizing roadshows, working with banks, working with service providers like the likes on this panel, but really having the also using and leveraging the digital tools such as YouTube videos, like a CEO video, and actually seeing who saw that video, what are the demographics of these people, which regions are they coming from, and then using that data and kind of going full circle, and then maybe implementing this into my roadshow strategy. So I see maybe a lot of interesting, interested people are from the UK, right? For example, our podcast here, Street Reads, we can actually see that most listeners quite obviously are from the DACH region, but second rank is like UK and third is US. So if we were like an issuer, we could now say, okay, interesting, maybe we do like a roadshow in UK or in the US. So really using that data that is available to us through digital tools, whether that's social media specific LinkedIn, whether that's videos, audios like this, podcasts, but also leveraging the reach of so-called finfluencers is something that I've, for example, done with one of my clients, Marley Spoon. So as they had their opening bell, once they got relisted, trying to reach the reach of people that have a lot of organic reach already through their accounts, inviting them along to events, for example, to really increase that visibility. And I think this is obviously just one pillar, right? I think the digital thing doesn't solve it all, but I think it's an additional puzzle piece that really then fits together with organizing a roadshow with a broker, doing share IDs and seeing who's actually on your share registry. And I think it's just another data point that we can use to really have the full picture. That's how I would.
Yeah. I suppose you pinpointed it quite well. Shareholder engagement at the end of the day is a puzzle, and every piece has its valuable place within the puzzle, going from data to ESG to digital strategies, as well as transparency and trust across your different activities. And to be able to succeed in its whole, you can't miss any part of it. I'd say we're coming towards the end of our panel. It was quick, but definitely filled with very valuable insights. I was wondering if you would all have some follow-ups or some additional insights that you feel we haven't shared yet and that the audience should know.
Maybe just to add, maybe from an investor side, in addition to all those puzzle items, some basics in terms of board meeting governance. What we just alluded shortly earlier to, I think very important part of shareholder engagement. Reporting, set defined KPIs, which you and your stakeholders jointly define. Characters of founders are different, so in terms of sometimes it helps to do scenarios, best case, worst case, if you have a more aggressive shareholder or a less aggressive founder. So these kind of basics, from my perspective, they are as well an important puzzle piece.
Yeah, completely agree. I couldn't agree more at this point in time.
I also would echo that. And I would also say that the other day, for example, I quite actually frequently get calls from, people that just want to have introductions to companies, but I think this happens in the private space, but also in the public space, that, they just think like having an investor contact really solves the issue. But I think it's really much more about, doing all of these little steps right. And you cannot really necessarily expect more engagement on the investor side just from one day to another, just because you did one post or just because you did one shareholder ID or just because you did one roadshow, right? I think it's like also making issuers understand that this is like a long journey. And if you're doing it consistently enough and like putting in the work, like this will eventually result in like better engagement, better conversations, better feedback, and obviously also eventually like people more investing more. But I think that has not really reached everyone yet. I have a feeling sometimes like people are coming to me and just like, oh, can I have like essentially like some investor contacts? And I think that doesn't really fix it,
I think you're spot on, Julia. Take them on the journey, right? It's not, don't reach out to the investors when you need money. Reach out to them when you don't need money. Take them on that journey, and then you have those contacts when you need money, right? A loan or some equity or whatever. Yes.
I could not agree more. I think it's also important that from the communication or when you reach out to investors, that you build up a track record and that they know that your own communication is honest and that you do not overpromise. Because whenever companies overpromise and then a negative news comes out, it takes you at least 5 positive news until the negative news is X'd out, and therefore I really highly can recommend to be on the conservative side in terms of communication, and then to come up with a positive, not with a negative news, and to be honest on the communication. I think that's the most important message, I would say, to the corporate communication with investors.
Thank you all for sharing this. I think honestly a lot of people could definitely benefit from having all these insights in one place, I would say. Well, with this, I would like to say thank you again all for joining us today, and look forward to having you all on the podcast or at one of our events very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, for the pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline.
So, wir sind jetzt auch schon wieder am Ende des Podcasts angekommen. Ich hoffe, dir hat diese Episode gefallen. Wenn du Hilfe brauchst bei irgendwelchen Kapitalmarktthemen oder digitalen Investor Relations Themen, dann melde dich gerne unter unicornconsulting.com und buch dir einen ersten freien Consulting Call. Wir würden uns ebenfalls darüber freuen, wenn du uns auf Social Media folgst, zum Beispiel YouTube, TikTok, Instagram oder auch LinkedIn, oder wenn du einfach einen Like da lässt. Ich wünsche euch alles Gute und bis zum nächsten Mal. Eure Julia. Ciao.